Hello and welcome to the live stream post-game edition of the Cyclone Insider Podcast. I'm Travis Hines. He's Randy Peterson coming to you from inside Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. If you couldn't tell by our surroundings here, after Iowa State's 50-20 loss to the 14th ranked Sooners on Saturday evening. Okay, you got the whole panorama view there from Randy. Started off really scary for Iowa State with a pick six. Things started looking up, and then Oklahoma really just put the clamps down on that Iowa State offense and the Iowa State defense. Probably the headline from the day is that Iowa State defense was as vulnerable as we've seen it probably since that 62-point explosion by TCU to end last year. So, Randy, what are your thoughts here as we sit inside Memorial Stadium after another Iowa State loss?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that Dylan Gabriel is very good.
We'll concur.
But he's going to beat a lot of opponents this year. So, and Iowa State, I'm not going to say Iowa State helped him, but Iowa State played not a very good defensive game. But as far as the rest of the game, I thought that Rocco, after the pick six, he played well for probably the remainder of the first half. I would think the running backs were decent for a quarter and a half. And I give a lot of props to Matt Campbell for not being so hard-headed in sticking to the rush, because today they passed the ball nearly 60% of the time, and that's certainly not that 50-50 rush pass offense that coaches like. So I give it to Matt Campbell for not being hard-headed, like I said, for switching his philosophy to gauge or for his philosophy around the strengths of his team instead of his team trying to play stuff that Campbell wants to run, or just any coach, not just Campbell, but coaches in general. They get hard-headed like that. But Campbell certainly wasn't. And, yeah, it's baby steps, but Iowa State rushed the ball better than they have all year. They had 150 yards or something. Sama, he had 67 yards, was a leading rusher. He needs the ball more. Rocco passed the ball well. He threw deep to Higgins. It was nice to see Higgins get in the play a little bit more. And Jalen Noel was good. So there were some positives in this otherwise 30-point blowout. And I know that seems weird, but there were still some positives.
Yeah, I mean, when you're coming off or when you're a 20-point underdog, I think it changes your perspective on how you evaluate what this team did today. And I think that there are reasons to be optimistic about Iowa State's offense. You know, the pick six was bad from Rocco Becht. His second interception was probably one of his worst decisions. You know, I think the pick six was probably a poorly thrown ball. The second interception was just a bad decision when he was under pressure. But they were able to throw the ball, run the ball a little bit better. But at the same time, you know, they scored their second touchdown 5 seconds into the second quarter and then didn't put the ball back in the end zone. They get shut out in the second half. So it's not like they figured out everything going forward, but I do think, you know, there's enough kernels of success there for Nate Scheelhaus, for Rocco Becht, and Matt Campbell to try to water and grow here. Coming into two pretty winnable games. You know, TCU lost tonight to West Virginia. Cincinnati obviously is a team that's not going to strike fear into a lot of opponents' hearts. But I think the bigger issue for Iowa State today, and again, this was a good Oklahoma team with a really good quarterback and an explosive offense. But for the second week in a row, John Haycock's defense looked mediocre, frankly. And again, you're judging them on a steep curve because they've been so good for so long. But this was they gave up what? The pick 6 to 7 points, safety off the block punt is 2, so they gave up 41 points. Not a great day for them, even with being in put it in a tough spot against a good offense, especially when you look at last week where they just weren't great against Oklahoma State either. And to me, it starts with the pass rush. Like Dylan Gabriel had all day to throw so many times. And, the defense doesn't look as good when Jaquan Bailey or Will McDonald's not out there. And this team does not have those kind of pass rushers right now.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. Like you said, it was the pass rush. Receivers and Kansas. Oklahoma has very, very good receivers, maybe the best group of receivers in the league, other than them or Texas. But anyway, those guys got open play after play after play, and there's something going on at the line of scrimmage. And it's like you said, it starts with the rush, with no rush, but it's also they were able to get separation from the Iowa State defensive backs, which I suspected would happen because, like I said, Oklahoma's receivers are very good. But even some of the plays, I mean, I don't remember who it was down at where we're sitting, Travis, down on the right corner. The defensive back just kind of fell down, and the ball just fell right into whatever receiver's hands, for example. And there were also on that Oklahoma had 1st and goal at the 6-yard line, and there were 2 holding penalties against the defense, and what was it? 2 holding and a pass interference.
3 holdings.
3 holdings. 3 holdings and a pass interference, and this is on the defense. So there's some work to do on the defensive side of the ball for sure.
Yeah, and Oklahoma was obviously at times targeting Miles Purchase.
Right.
And some of that is just it's not TJ Tampa is some of that, and a bigger, to me, the bigger part, like Miles Purchase, I think is a pretty solid corner. Not as good as Tampa, but a solid corner. But if you don't have a pass rush, like the weakest link, even if it's a strong link, is going to get easier to pick on. And I think that's what happened a lot today for Oklahoma is they were able to execute their plan because they had time. And if they don't have time or if they have pressure, it gets a lot harder to execute the way that they were to the tune of 40 points or whatever offensively. And that's the Oklahoma's ability to have big plays after we saw Oklahoma State do that last week. Again, I think you're not pushing the panic button certainly for this Iowa State defense, but there's a level of concern here, I think, and legitimate concern that we probably have not seen in quite some time for Iowa State's defense, which again is a testament of how good they've been for how long.
Yeah, and like you said, they're not going to see another Oklahoma this year. Going forward, it's not going to be all that bad because there were positives coming out of today, and I don't think Iowa State got any injuries today. All the injured players, to the best of my knowledge, came back to play today or tonight. So there were, in a 30-point blowout, there were positives. And let's not forget, I'm going back to the offensive side now for a second. Let's not forget there were only 3 seniors started. Easton Dean and Hufford and Triber. 3 seniors started. That was pretty much it. So once again, Iowa State is trying to win games, but also being forced to look ahead to the future as well because of the youth on this team. And if they can get any sort of confidence out of the first half of today, then that could carry them far. And I think you agree with me on this one, Travis. I think we both believe that John Haycock will get the defense fixed. And let's face it, I don't think other than Texas, maybe Kansas, I don't think Iowa State's going to face any kind of offense like what they faced tonight. So there were some positives in this blowout loss.
Yeah, the last thing for me is I think you got to give that Iowa State offensive line credit because we've been pretty critical of them, and I think fairly so, that it's been a struggle for them earlier this year. Campbell said he thought that was their best game. I would tend to agree. I mean, they did not get absolutely run down. There were still moments there where you looked like, okay, that was not good, but it was still much better than we saw against Ohio, much better than we saw against Oklahoma State. So that's at least moving in the right direction. And now you're still only 2 weeks away from getting Jake Remsburg back. That can help,
Right.
presumably help shore that up even more. So that's a positive for Iowa State on a day where there were a few, but certainly 50-20 loss is going to sting in what is probably likely Iowa State's last trip to Oklahoma Memorial Stadium with the Sooners, along with Texas, who, by the way, is looking very much like that's going to be the Big 12 title game this year, which Brett Yormark will love that. Leaving for the SEC. Can you hear the chants of SEC at AT&T Stadium now between those two programs?
Yeah.
But Iowa State loses 50-20 to Oklahoma on Saturday night. They return home next weekend to host TCU, who I mentioned lost to West Virginia tonight. So plenty on deck. Be sure to check out DesMoinesRegister.com for Randy and I's coverage of the game tonight, and then looking ahead to next week, which is also the 100-year memorial game for commemorating the 100 years since Jack Trice's death in 1923. So we'll have plenty of coverage of all of Iowa State's preparation for that game and that event. He's Randy. I'm Travis. This has been the Cyclone Insider live stream and podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.